Flatulence probably isn't the first word you'd expect to hear me say at the beginning of a section about emotions, but do you, without realizing it, suffer from what I call emotional flatulence? What on earth could I mean by that? Well, in the same way that certain foods lead inevitably to emissions of unwanted gas, are you constantly feeding your mind with so many unhelpful thoughts that it's only a matter of time before there's an inevitable and unwanted reaction, namely an emotional fart? These recurring unhelpful thoughts ferment and stew inside until one day they can't be contained any longer. You might lose your temper over something seemingly insignificant. Perhaps you speak harshly and later wish you could unsay whatever you blurted out, but you can't, can you? Strong people don't do that type of thing. Would you be prepared to accept that genuinely happy, calm and relaxed people don't suffer from these emotional farts? They don't scream, they don't shout or have tantrums. They're not difficult or demanding. They don't whinge or complain. Why is that, do you think? Could it be that their emotional state is in complete harmony with their surroundings? They tend to be emotionally stable and are quietly confident that they can cope with whatever life throws at them. They view life as it is rather than being obsessed with the way it should be. People with this type of emotional balance are highly appealing to other people. They value themselves. They also tend to brighten a room when they walk in rather than when they leave. But is it possible to adopt and absorb these qualities? I believe it is, and becoming self-aware is the first step. Recognizing the triggers that set you off is a valuable, long-lasting life skill. If you've ever done yoga or Pilates, or you're a serious athlete, you've almost certainly heard of core stability. The training regimes of professional athletes almost always include exercises designed to strengthen their core. These are the muscles inside and around the pelvis and the stomach, and a well-maintained core provides physical strength, flexibility and stability. Athletes with a strong core tend to recover from injury far more quickly than those with poorly developed core muscles. By more fully understanding how our thinking patterns can derail and weaken us by triggering persistent and unhelpful emotions that cause us so much internal turmoil, it's important we learn to understand and manage our emotions. And this got me thinking, what if you could look after your emotions in a similar way as you look after your core muscles to have stronger, more flexible and more stable emotions? In much the same way as your physical core protects and strengthens you physically, a strong emotional core can provide inner emotional strength and protection. Think of the emotional core as a deep protective coating around your heart and soul. Emotions can be so uplifting, yet the same power and intensity can cause untold pain and anguish, attacking our hearts and souls like a cancer. The emotional muscles I selected are these: self-esteem, attitude, happiness, and kindness, starting with kindness to yourself. When you improve your self-esteem, you feel more at ease with who you are. By accepting yourself, you become less needy of others. Moving from a low self-esteem to a healthy one, your self-confidence also improves. When you start exhibiting a natural sense of quiet self-confidence, you become more appealing to those around you. Once you've improved your attitude to yourself, this will improve the attitude you exhibit to those you live and work with. Others will almost certainly respond to you more positively. This, in turn, contributes to your sense of well-being. It also reduces your stress. This, in turn, makes you a calmer and more relaxed person. The combination of an improved attitude towards yourself and others, as well as improved self-esteem, increases the likelihood that you'll start to feel happier in yourself. And by working on improving your happiness even further by adopting simple yet effective happiness strategies, this again strengthens your entire emotional core. Each one feeds and nourishes the others. You become emotionally stronger from within. When you develop your emotional core, fears and insecurity seem to melt away. They won't necessarily disappear completely, but you'll no longer feel overwhelmed by them. And they're all authentic and genuine qualities that become a part of the real you. There's no faking. The advantages to you and to everyone else you come into contact with have a potential to be monumental and long-lasting. Anyone who may have experienced hardship and trauma in their past will sometimes have negative emotions. They'll have low self-esteem, insecurity, neediness, depression, or unhappiness. It often sneaks out when they least expect it and often gets directed at the innocent bystanders in their life. It's more likely to happen when they're under stress. They may explode in fits of anger, distress, resentment, bitterness, extreme negativity, and even jealousy. In some cases, their outbursts also include physical violence. Or there are the men and women who've learned to contain their emotions by imploding. It's a bit like those cartoon characters who swallow a stick of dynamite. The dynamite goes off and blows up the character into the size of a large ball before returning to its original shape. They open their mouth and a small whiff of smoke completes the comedic effect. The only problem with this solution in real life is that it never tackles the root cause of any suffering. So, what recurring thoughts do you tend to have that are not helping you to lead a happier life? Imagine your life if you didn't spend so much of your time exhausting yourself by thinking so much about these unhelpful thoughts. It is possible to do this, and doing so will make you a far more appealing person to yourself and to others. Unhelpful thoughts are described by the late Richard Carlson, PhD, in his book Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. He calls it snowball thinking. A small snowball thought gathers more and more unhelpful snow until it's grown to an enormous size. If you spend a lot of time on your own, thinking about yourself, your life, what you feel you deserve but are not getting, opportunities missed, regrets, unfulfilled dreams and desires, it's fairly likely that a small snowball thought will similarly gather size and importance, but only in your head. An example of snowball thinking might start along these lines. Your partner has said or done something that you don't understand. Nothing bad as such, but you're a bit confused by it. So what do? You start thinking about it. In fact, you try to analyze it. Actually, you do this over and over again. It starts to take over your thinking. This tiny snowball is starting to gain in size. Because you've now devoted so much time thinking about it, you've finally figured out what it really meant. What was originally a theory has now been allowed to grow into something much more significant. Now you've convinced yourself that you know what it meant, and it wasn't good. In fact, it is now proof that yet again someone has disrespected you, or they failed to live up to your expectations. How could they? What a bastard, what a bitch! All the while, of course, your partner is blissfully unaware of any wrongdoing. Why? Because there was no wrongdoing. But how do you think they'll get treated the next time you get together? Somehow, this snowball thinking leads to a massive case of emotional flatulence. Have you ever had such an experience? Either as a victim or perhaps as a perpetrator? Almost certainly we all have. But here's a critical point. The above reaction had nothing to do with the original behavior of that partner. It was entirely down to the fact that the person with the snowball thinking attached a series of incorrect meanings and assumptions to that innocent behavior. As each wrong assumption was added into the mix, its destructive power grew. But what needs to be recognized is how and why these assumptions came about in the first place. A stronger emotional foundation can and will protect you. It provides you with more emotional stability, flexibility, and an inner strength. When you know deep down that you have a stronger emotional core, those resources will help you cope far better with whatever life storms get thrown at you. In the next video, I'll talk more about the first and in some ways the pivotal emotional core component, your self-esteem.